Today, I'm going to be concentrating on numbers in iOS. Um, quick show of hands. How many of you attended the Numbers for Mac a couple of weeks ago? Okay, so a couple of you. Yeah, cool. So half of you. So Tim, Gerard, if you guys want to switch on your video, be really cool. No pressure. So there are so many similarities between numbers for macOS and numbers for iOS because really it's the same code base. The main difference is over the last 10 years, numbers has been developed as a touch-first interface, whereas numbers for Mac has been designed around a cursor, a keyboard, and so on. Now that Apple have introduced cursor and keyboard support for iPadOS, things are starting to converge and it's starting to get rather interesting. So we're short for time today because of some colossal technical cock-up, but let's get straight into it. So kicking straight into numbers, if I click on the icon in the dock, like most iPad applications, it opens up where you left off. So if you're in the middle of a spreadsheet, you'll be into a spreadsheet. If you were on the templates, it'll pick up on the templates. If you're on the recents, it'll pick up on the recents. So what you see on the screen at the moment is the kind of browser, if you like, where you can see all your numbers documents. At the moment, I'm on the recents documents, so you can see that the last documents I was working was 2020 online planning, pricing, streaming reviews, and so on. If I scroll down, you can see documents that I'm sharing with other people. And if I tagged any documents, you would have seen them here. So these ones are being tagged with the color blue. Alternatively, if I click on Browse at the bottom, I get the chance to browse the entire file structure of both the iPad. So my iCloud Drive, if I click on my iPad, I can go to Numbers, and wouldn't you know it, I don't have any documents locally on my iPad. Every Numbers document I have exists on the cloud. So I can go to iCloud Drive, and if I go down to Numbers, 268 items, let's open this folder. And these are most of the documents that you guys all saw earlier. If I have documents in Google Drive, Box, OneDrive, Dropbox, I can access them from here. And if I've got any servers that I'm connected to locally, you'll see over here, it's possible to connect to a server. And if you're working in an organization, you've got a Windows server, a Mac server, you can connect your files there. So let's go back to our documents. And I'm going to create a new document over here. So I'll click the plus button and I get access to the templates over here. So there's a variety of templates. They're broken down into recents, basic, personal, finance. So if I scroll down, I'll be able to see all of them. Or if I just say, let's click on education, it'll jump me straight down to all the education templates. So let's have a look at some of the templates. If we look at education, for example, they've got an attendance spreadsheet. If I click on that, it'll open up and I can change the name of my class and put my name in there, put my students in there, and I can mark people as present or absent. And if you have a look down at the bottom, you'll see it's automatically adding up. Every time I click on the checkbox, it's adding up the attendees, how many days they've been present, how many times they've been checked. To return back to that picker, I just go back to spreadsheets, and I'm once again back in my document picker over here. That's one template. If I go back to my other templates, there's some really nice ones that you can use. Recipes. If you are planning meals, you can put your ingredients in here and put the number of people that this recipe serves. You can say how many people you're preparing for, and it'll automatically adjust your calculation. So it's a spreadsheet. It works like a spreadsheet. So I'm just going to go back to my browse, and I'm going to open up a blank document here. So let's just create a spreadsheet, and I'm just going to choose a blank one. So to start off with, I'm just going to go through the structure of the interface, the way numbers looks. Then I'm going to open up a document that I've created earlier, and then I'm going to show you how I make it. And then if you've got more time, I'll show you more stuff. So You've already seen that we navigate backwards and forwards between our spreadsheet picker and our making new spreadsheets by clicking on Spreadsheet. That takes us back to where we were. Double click on that to open it up again. And this is a regular spreadsheet. If you're familiar with Excel, you know you get this infinite grid of cells that move from column A to column gazillion. And if you go down in your rows, it goes from row 1 to row gazillion. Numbers has a more finite number of rows and columns, but it's still pretty darn big. It's good enough for most purposes. The nice part about it is that you can build tables that don't interfere with each other. And one of the examples I like to give is if I've got 3 columns over here, if I've got, say, dogs, cats, and mice, and I've got some information over here, and now I'm filling this in, and now I want to put something else over here, and I need to insert a column. It messes with absolutely everything above it. So if I wanted to insert a column for something down here, it messes with this. Whereas if I want to make a separate set of tables that has different requirements, I can literally resize this table to the size I want to by dragging on these double handles. And then I can add a new table. If I tap plus over here, I can add a new table, and there's my second table. And it works as an independent spreadsheet, but I can link cells between the spreadsheets as well. So this little table could be a summary of the information on this table. I'm not constrained to one infinite grid and have to do sort of magic tricks to make sure that if I add columns to data below, that it doesn't mess with the data above. So that's one of the really nice parts about numbers and how it differs from something like Excel. So, like most modern spreadsheets, we can have multiple worksheets. So I'm on sheet 1 at the moment. If I wanted to make a new sheet, I just click over here, I make a new sheet, and now I'm on sheet 2. I can rename this. I can double click, just start typing. And let's call this overview. On the other hand, if I'm not using the cursor or a pointing device, if I double tap on with my thumb and I can say master sheet. So depending on whether you're using the trackpad or a mouse or your fingers, it'll behave slightly differently. If I want to rename this document or give it a name, I don't have to go back to the spreadsheet and choose the rename function. I just click on here and I can rename it, I can save it, I can move it. So I'm just going to rename this and I'll call this demo. And unlike a traditional computer with a menu bar that goes across, which has a menu for every function, most of these menus are multifunctional. So this is our format button. And this allows us to change the format of objects that we select. It's contextual. So if I have my table selected and I click format, it will allow me, it'll go automatically to my table formatting where I can choose different predefined styles. I can add headers and footers. At the moment, you can see I've got one header. I've got one header row. I've got one header column, but I've got no footers. So if I add a footer row, this is now a footer row, and if I resize this, the footer row stays at the bottom always, which is lovely. So if you want to increase the number of rows in here and you've got formulae which automatically calculate the content over here, it just gets pushed down. You don't have to copy and paste your formulae. It'll go down and it'll automatically tabulate any changes that have been done above. So if I click on a cell and go back to the format painter, it allows me to format that cell, as opposed to when the table was selected and it chooses table formatting. So it's completely contextual. Whatever you happen to have selected will give you the chance to format the content over there. I'm not going to go too deeply into the content at the moment, because when we build our spreadsheet, you'll start to see these things working. We have a organize button. And this organize button will let me do several things. So let me choose this table and click organize again. And with organize, we can sort columns and rows. We can create filters so that we only see certain bits of information. So if I've got a a spreadsheet that has a number of produce in there, like apples, oranges, and pears, I can say, just show me the pears, hide everything else. That's what your filter's about. And then we've got categories, which will allow me to do some really sophisticated sorting, which again, I'll show you as we go into this, into the workshop. The plus button allows me to add new content. So if I click plus, and if you're familiar with Keynote, you're familiar with Pages, this should all be very, very familiar to you. So you can insert different types of tables. This is a table with column headers, with row headers. This is a table that just has column headers. This is a table that has no headers. Column, table, and footers. This is one with checkboxes, and this is one for some obscure reason has stock prices. So it'll automatically go online, click it so you can see it. So here's, if you put the symbol of the stock, so I think Microsoft is MSFT. If I hit return there, it should look it up shortly and get me the stock price. So if this is MSFT, let's see if that works. There we go. So if keeping track of stock is something that's important to you, this particular table is going to be very useful. Then you can see via the dots at the bottom is that we have a number of styles of exactly the same sets of tables. So they're all predefined styles that look the way you might want them to look. We can also add charts. We've got 2D charts, 3D charts, interactive charts. We won't be looking at charts today because we're going to have a session completely on charts. We can add objects. We've got a set of basic objects. We've got geometric objects. We've got all sorts of objects, animals, nature. And those of you who saw some of the drawing tools that we did on the introduction to Pages will be familiar with the fern. We can put objects inside here. So the kind of document that we can create over here is a far cry from the document that you create when you're in something like Excel. We can also add content, so photos or videos. If I click photos, we've got access to content that's on my drive. So here's a little manta ray. This is supposed to be real. We can add, I can turn on the camera and take photographs. I can record audio. Just showing you how this all works. Stop it. I can edit this. Let's just chop the intro off. Let's leave it there. Say trim. And preview. Just showing you how this all works. Hopefully you can hear that. Just showing you how this all works. And if I insert that, I can insert a spoken comment. Just showing you how this all works. So lots of media that we can access. A new feature over here is web video. So instead of inserting a video, I click the web video, it'll ask me for a URL. I'm not going to do that right now. I can paste in the URL, and then when the person that I'm sending this to opens it up, they click the link, it downloads from the web. So we can do drawings, we can insert equations, lots of media types that we can add. This is a new tool that was introduced just 3 or 4 weeks ago. Often when you open up a spreadsheet or open up something on your iPad, it's easy to accidentally start editing because it's touch first. So if I tap on this, I'm in edit mode. Here I cannot change anything. I can't accidentally move anything around. If I want to work on it, I click on here, and now I'm back into edit mode. So it switches off, it turns me into a browse mode. And finally, before I start building my spreadsheet, these are everything that doesn't fit in the first 4. So if I want to share this with somebody, if you're an iPad user, you're familiar with all this, you can airdrop, you can message, you can send it to different applications, you can add people to share, and so on. Oh, sorry, I missed this guy over here. This is the collaboration button. If I want to add people to collaborate on this document simultaneously with me, I can invite them and we can work on the document at the same time. Let's go back to this here. So we've got export, and for those of you who are working with colleagues who might use Excel, you can export your spreadsheets in Excel format. You can import Excel documents into Numbers for iOS. You can export it as a PDF. You can save it as a comma separated value, which is something that's typically used for comma separated values is a typical computer way of transferring tabular data between computers. TSV is a tab separated value. So instead of having commas separating your columns, you have tabs. And you can also save this as a template. So if you've created a document that you want to reuse, but not accidentally overwrite, you can save it as a template. Let's go back to here. You can print. If I click print, we have the ability to preview how it's going to look when I print it. So I can resize my output. You can see the pages up there. I can turn it into landscape view if I wanted to. And then once again, resize this to fit it. There's an auto fit. And when I'm here, I can go to my settings and I can add page numbers. If anybody's made comments on it, I can make them visible. I've got table headers, footers. So fairly sophisticated in terms of output into paper. I'm not going to print that. Let's just run through these quickly because I really want to build a spreadsheet for you. If I click find, I can set up guides. I can set a password. I can change the language and region, settings for my pencil. Numbers help, always good. Best place to find information. It's online, it's constantly being updated. So that's a very quick run through on that. Let me go back to my spreadsheets and I want to open up a document that I prepared for you earlier. I'll go back to numbers. Okay, so here's a spreadsheet that I made earlier, and it's a very simple spreadsheet. It's a company that only buys one product a month, and they want to rate the quality of the product. They want to document the source of the product, keep track of the price, how many they bought, and how much it cost. Very, very simple spreadsheet, the kind of thing that people would do quite often. So here I've got all my months. Here I've got my products, quality, source price, and so on. So let's have a look at this. If I click on here, I can start to enter. So I could say this is grapes, for example. And here, when I click in here, well, I've deleted the formatting, but let me show you how I set this all up. So if I wanted to change the formatting of this column, so instead of, let's say it was a 3-star. So I'll put the number 3 in here. If I go to my format bar, you can see the cell format. I've got what you would expect: number, currency, percentage, date, time, duration for times, slide. Now these are the new ones: slider, stepper, pop-up menu, star rating. So let me click star rating, and you'll see that number has now been translated into 3 stars. Right? It's quite useful, and you'll see why this is useful for me a little later on. If I click on source, you see I get a pop-up menu over here. So if I know exactly where my products are coming from, I can create a pop-up menu, which will allow me to select this. I no longer have the possibility of somebody making typographic errors, spelling errors. So if I want to now search and sort and find, I'm guaranteed that the information that I want is there. I'm just going to undo that. So grapes, the grapes we got, let's get them from Egypt. So here's the thing. So here's my pop-up menu. If I select this and I want to make my pop-up menu, format, pop-up menu, you can see there's nothing in there. If I can add a new item, but I've already pre-populated this with some information. So let's have a look through the spreadsheet. If I wanted to select a column, I can click to activate the table. Oh, let's click somewhere else. And you see I get my column headers with A, B, C, D, E, and I get my row numbers. Now, if I click on D, it selects the entire column. And if I want to resize this, I just drag those little double chevrons over here. Now, if I want to make pop-up menus for everything inside here, if I have this selected, it'll make one for source as well. And I don't want that. I want my header to stay as it is. So here's a little technique that works both in numbers on the Mac and numbers here. If you double click on the letter D, which represents the column, it selects the content. It doesn't select the header and it doesn't select the footer. Now, if I go to my Format Painter and choose Pop-up Menu, tap on Info, can you see it's already pre-populated it with the content that was there? I don't want false, so I'm just going to delete that. Okay, and I want it to, the initial value will always be blank. I could make it the first item if I wanted it to, but I want it to be blank. So now, if I go to my cell here, I click on, I now have a pop-up menu, click on Egypt, and now it fills that in for me. Okay. So let's make a price. Let's make this, let's make it 750. And quantity. Okay, now it's not formatting properly at the moment, but that's okay. I click on quantity. Let's say, for example, I purchase, never purchase anything more than 500, and I always buy in increments of 25. Let's say, for example, I go to my Format Painter, and I can say, you know what, I want this to be a slider. But if I select, if I do exactly what I did before, because I've already set these up, no, I haven't set them up. So let's double click on this one. And I want to format this. So it's automatic is usually your default. I'm going to make this a slider. And I want to set up some values for that slider. So I say the minimum value is 0, the maximum is 500. It's more or less worked out from the largest number I've got there. But I want this to step up in increments of 25. And I can change the format to number, currency, percentage, but I'm happy with number over here. If I click on this now, I get a slider. And when I move it up and down, it always adjusts in increments of 25. Now, I think it's changed the initial value to 1. So it's going from 1 to 26 to 51 and so on. So let's just make that 76. Yeah. So can you see how data entry is starting to become quite simple? Now, I want this to be a calculation, and these are calculations. If I click on here, you can see, if I show the keyboard format, you'll see down here that this is a formula where November's price multiplied by November's quantity equals that. Okay, very, very simple calculation. So it's just taking the price and multiplying it by the quantity. So if I wanted to use that formula in the bottom row, if I select the cell that I want, you can see at the bottom there's that little yellow dot. If I click on there, it does a fill down, and that formula is now replicated. We should see December, price December times quantity December. So if I change my value here, let's make this bigger. Why is it only 100? Let me just check my format here. Did I make a mistake? Slider. Yep. Make that 0. Make this 500. Turn. And now I'll be able to change the values the way I want to. And you can see it's automatically calculating. Now, don't really have that much time. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to run through very quickly how I put this together. And you can see pretty rapidly how you can make a spreadsheet quite easily. This is not a baby spreadsheet. This is a full-on spreadsheet that gives you a lot of functionality. So let's go back to spreadsheets. I'm going to make a new one. I'm just going to choose a blank spreadsheet. And so let's type in month. Now, to go from cell to cell, I hit the tab key. Obviously, if I'm using multi-touch, I just tap on the screen. Let's say product, quality, source, price, quantity, and cost to us. Okay, so I want to have a year range. So I'm going to type in January. Okay, that's good. If I hit return, I go down a cell. If I tap shift return, I go back up a cell. If I want to go to the right, I hit tab. If I want to go back to the left, I hit shift tab. So if I like working on my keyboard, I can stay on the keyboard. But now I don't want to have to type February, March, April, May, June, July. And if you were at the numbers workshop earlier this month, you'll know we have this thing called autofill. So if I click on cell over here, you've got this option to autofill your cells. If I click autofill, the cursor around, or at least the highlighter around it, changes, and I can drag this and it just autofills up to December. So there's my year. I've got all my months. I'm fine with that. Now, I want to have a totals row over here. So I want to reduce this down to 15 cells or 15 rows. So I'm just going to, or 14 row. I'm just going to drag up and it's going to hide everything but the 14th row. Now with my table selected, I'm going to my format bar, click on table, and I want to go to headers and footers, and I want to add a footer row. Okay, this is now a footer row, and it will, whatever I do here will always stay in this row. It won't just add extra rows below. This will always be the bottom of my table. Okay, so let's just type a few things over here. I'll say apples, pears, oranges, grapes. So I want to convert this into a pop-up menu that has those values. So I double click on the top here. It selects that. I want to format it. And I want that to be a pop-up menu with apples, pears, oranges, and grapes. And I want the first item to be blank. Wonderful, I'm happy here. So now if I go back to my, oh, sorry, went one too low. If I go back to a cell here, I get a pop-up with apples, pears, oranges, and grapes. So I can now just go in and fill it in. Let's just say some more pears. Right, so that's good. Quality. I want this to be a star rating, so I'll double click on this, format it, make this a star rating, and star rating will always give you 5 stars. That's just what you'll get. You'll get 5 stars from 1 to 5. Source, again, like before, South Africa. I'm not going to do all of them. South Africa, or maybe I will. Namibia. Let's narrow down our and Egypt. Once again, pop-up menu, overshooting my menus. There we go. There's our new things. That's good. I'm happy with that. Price will leave. Quantities, again, we'll do what I did before. Select and choose a slider. Minimum value 0. Maximum value, let's go big. Let's make it 750. Oh, sorry. Increments, let's make them increments of 50 this time, and it's going to be numbers. That's fine. So for our price, I want to format that as a currency. So if I double click on that, I can format it. Choose currency. Now if I click on info, I can choose the currency that I want. So I'm going to say, okay, we want South African rands. There we go. South African rands. And if I go back, I can choose how my negatives look, if I want them in red, if I want them in brackets. If I choose a counting style, it'll take the currency symbol and stick it right on the left-hand side, if I remember right. And we can choose how many decimal points, but currency should automatically choose 2 decimal points. Okay, so I obviously didn't put 0 as the first value. So let's just put those as 0, and I'll fill them down at the moment. So what happens when you do these things in a rush? Yeah, I'm just going to fill that value down to 0. And let's put a price in here of these. Let's make this $5.99. Make this $5.45, $2.99, and so on. And the cost to us is going to be a formula. So I select this, and if you see down here at the bottom, I have this formula button, the equal sign. Okay, so this is going to equals the price multiplied by the quantity. Sorry, I missed there. By the quantity. I hit return, and there's nothing there at the moment, but now if I change my quantity to 500, it automatically calculates for me. So I want this to fill down so that this formula is the same all the way down. Copy that down, and we're fine over here. Now I want this column to be the total of all the amounts that I've cost. So if I click on cell, we've got some quick formulae over here. And if I just want that to be the sum, click on sum, and it's added it up. So now if I take this and I make this a different value, there we go. So you can see it's automatically calculating. Let's just quickly change that to currency formatting so that you can see it a little bit more. South African Rand currency, it's perfect. Let's make that. And we want it, South African Rand is what we want. Why are you showing pounds? South African Rand, good. There we go, ZAR. So I also want this column to be a total of quantity. Why I would want to do that, no, God knows. But if I select that and I drag here to the left, there we go. So that's a total of the quantities that we purchased. So now if I want to rate this quality, all I have to do is just click. All right. So that's pretty nice. But what I want to do is I want to see what the average of the quality of the products that I'm buying. So I'm going to once again click on my cell format, and I'm going to choose a quick formula. I'm going to choose average, and there, because we haven't filled everything, it's a very low value. Let me just add them up. You can see it's going to improve and improve and improve. I can set my decimal points if I want to. But now here's the thing and the point that I really wanted to get to. And so thank you for bearing with me on this. The one thing that I wanted to show you is that because this is a mobile device, sometimes if I'm walking around with it and I have to deal with each cell and I'm using my finger here, it gets a little bit fiddly. Things are kind of small. One of the things that Numbers allows us to do is to create a form for my spreadsheet where each row gets its own screen. So for data entry, it becomes really, really simple. Now, the first thing, excuse me, the first thing you have to do is we may have multiple tables on the spreadsheet. So I really want to name this table so that it becomes easy to find and easy to identify. So let's just call this annual produce list. Okay, that's fine. So now, if I come up here, typically if I wanted to make a new sheet, I just click on the plus button. But if I press, I now have the option not just to make a new sheet, but a new form. Now let's assume I've got 15 other tables on there. They would appear here depending on how I named them. And you can see sheet 1 has a table called annual product list or produce list. If I select that, you see what it does. I now have a form just for the first row. There were 12 months, so I'm on the first one of 12. It has all of the column headers that I had. And if I want to move to the next one, there's February, there's March. Okay, quantity, 0. Tap on that. Slider that I made before, still there, but much, much larger and much, much easier for big, heavy, clumsy fingers to manage. If we go back here, again, grapes from Egypt. God knows, I know they're expensive. So price. Let's make that. $7.99, and quantity, lots of bunches. Let's add you up there. And moving along, if I go to my source over here, because I created this as a pop-up menu, there's my pop-up menus. So if I'm working in a warehouse, if I'm just gathering data anywhere in a mobile situation where an iPad is a better option than a laptop, this is my go-to place. This is where I want to be. And if I go to some that aren't filled in yet, let's just take this. Let's take some apples. Let's make them 4-star. They come from Zimbabwe, and the price is 10 million Zimbabwe dollars. 10.99, and we're buying let's get 250 of them. So this is July, right? It's cool. If I go back to sheet 1, it's all filled in for me, right? So I can build spreadsheets that have the complexity and the depth of information that I want to see, but I can also turn it into an easily selectable pop-up, easy to fill in spreadsheet, easy to fill in form that auto populates my spreadsheet. So I think that's, I've used up a lot of your time. I know we started late. I think I'll end that there. If there's further interest in numbers in the spreadsheets, there's a lot more that we can do with it. But right now I'm going to end the screen sharing and turn it over to you guys for some questions.
All of these features that you show over here, are they, I have 2 questions. Are they available on numbers when you're working on a MacBook?
100%.
Or is it different features?
Feature for feature, the same. Okay. Oh, sorry, with one exception. Yes. The forms feature that I showed you is only available on the mobile device.
Okay. And then the second question I wanted to ask you was, in my circle, most people use Microsoft. So often when I work, I have to, when I share, I have to share it as an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Okay. So some of the add-ons, such as the voice and all of those things, do they work once it's been transferred as an email to become an Excel, or do they become null and void?
They become null and void. I mean, the bells and whistles that make it a Mac application, that's not going to translate across because Excel doesn't know what to do with it. But in terms of your calculations, in terms of your numbers, that's Excel's bread and butter, and that works fine. Look, if you've got a super complex Excel spreadsheet and you're going to bring it in that's got all sorts of bells and whistles, there may be areas that don't work. But for your common or garden spreadsheet with tables and calculations, and so that's going to work just fine.
I've had no problems with the crossing over. I just asking about certain of the features that you were demonstrating right now. That's what I wanted to know about.
Okay, when you copy the format at the bottom in your footer row, your currency format across to the left, it went to 800, but it wasn't in currency. So I'm just wondering how you shift your format.
I wasn't copying the formatting. When I did the fill left, I was copying the formula.
All right.
So the formula for the column that I was copying from was the sum of the cells above, and I just wanted it to add up the content from the row to the left, which was the quantities, but it wasn't the format, because one was currency, as you say, and the other one was just a standard number. So it wasn't the format that I was changing; it was just the calculation that I was moving across.
So if you want to copy the format, perhaps the box that's around it, the border, the whole shooting match, is there a way of doing that?
Look, if you, not really, because you wouldn't want the quantity to change from quantity to currency, because that would make a mess of everything that was above it, right?
Sure.
If you've got a column that's quantities and the next column is currency, you literally don't want it to. It'll take the formatting of however you set the format, but you may want to replicate the calculations.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Just a quick one quick question. You didn't do this with a little keypad, did you? You did this with your finger on the iPad, am I correct? Or were you using
No. I was using the my trackpad. I was using this
little trackpad. Okay, so
that's what gave you
trackpad to your iPad.
Yeah, that's what gave you that little round circle that I was moving across. Yeah,
okay, that's great to know. Great to know that I could
if you've
do that.
not seen that, Mant, if you go to the YouTube channel, you'll see we did one on connecting a mouse or a trackpad to your iPad.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if your iPad can run iOS 13 or iPadOS 13, you can connect a trackpad.
Okay, I would imagine it's just a Bluetooth connection, or is it something more complicated?
It's exactly that. It's a Bluetooth connection. You can also connect USB mice, but you'll need a USB adapter.
Yeah. Thanks, Alan.
It's lovely having you guys here once again. I hope you found it useful, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Brian.